Good evening. Welcome, everyone. My name is Kathy Johnson, and I work as an intervention coordinator with Henrico County Public Schools in Student Support and Wellness. And I would like to also introduce my colleague. She can come over and have her introduce herself.
Good evening. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Burkhead. I'm with the Virginia Department of Health, and I'm the regional coordinator for tobacco control. I'm also a member of Henrico Too Smart to Start, so I work with Kathy and control there, and then also with Henrico Schools.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for being here. We value the work of the health department and Virginia Tobacco Control. We have many of their banners up in our schools, and just appreciate all the support and resources and expertise that she provides. So just to thank you all for joining us today, we also want to thank the Family and Community Engagement for their support. The Mental Health Matters series. Amy Johnson is here with Student Support and Wellness, and we appreciate the Mental Health Matters series. This is an opportunity to engage with our parents and the community on what we think is a really important issue, and many parents have asked for this presentation. So we hope that this will be valuable for you. As the U.S. Surgeon General has stated, the problem of youth vaping has risen to the status of a national epidemic. In other words, we're in a crisis, and it's imperative that we act quickly to stop the problem from spiraling further out of control. By viewing this presentation, you're arming yourself with an important tool in this battle, knowledge. And with this information, you are becoming a vital part of the solution. The e-cigarette sector of the tobacco industry is evolving at a rapid pace, with new products constantly entering the market. As policymakers scramble to rein in this issue, new regulations are being put in place at local, state, and national levels. It can be really tough with everything going on to stay on top of everything. We're going to do our best to try to distill the latest and most important information in this presentation. The first thing we're going to do is share a short video. And we're hoping that through this video that you will be able to get some information about some of the possible myths around vaping. So I'm going to pull up this video and would like for you to actually engage. There are some true-false cards on your table. So as you're watching the video, I would like for you to see if you can answer these questions, true or false. It's going to go pretty quickly, so go ahead and start. It's not very long.
If you think it's a fact and it's not, then I get to eat you.
I don't think that's a rule of the game.
Sitting down with California teens and parents to see what they know about vaping.
Do you know what these are?
I don't know.
They look like toys.
They're different kinds of vapes.
If I would see that in your room, I probably wouldn't even think to look at it, really.
Fact or false? Vape juice is just water vapor and flavoring.
No, that's false.
False. False.
Most vape juice on the market contains
Nicotine, a neurotoxin, which is poison for teens developing brains.
Well, there goes my brain cells.
15 to 17-year-olds are twice as likely to use Juul than older generations.
Stop copying me, Mom.
I didn't copy you. I
All
just
right.
think.
Very confident.
Yeah, I'd say that.
Super confident.
Not that confident. Okay, sorry guys. False.
False.
Recent study found that they are 16 times more likely to use Juul than 25 to 34-year-olds. So not just twice as
Just twice
likely.
as likely.
Trick question.
Trick question.
Between 2017 to 2018, vaping jumped by almost 25% among middle school kids.
I'm gonna say false because it's probably more than 25%.
No.
Para mí es como no hay ninguna regla para usar estos maquinitas. Por eso que ahora la juventud la usa más que el cigarro.
Well, Mom is right this time. False. It jumped by almost 50% among middle school kids and by almost 80% among high schoolers.
Wow.
In an effort to monitor school vaping, some schools have had to remove doors from bathroom stalls and even close bathrooms entirely.
That's a fact.
Fact.
That's crazy.
50% of high schoolers who vape use flavored products.
I think the percentage is way higher.
False, because it's more.
False. In California, almost 90% of all high school students who vape report using flavors.
You can smell all the flavors like going through the hallways, like in the classrooms even.
Very, very scary.
1 Juul pod contains roughly the same amount of nicotine as 1 cigarette.
The answer is false. 1 Juul pod contains the same amount of nicotine as an entire pack of cigarettes.
Oh, I'm so good at this.
So small.
I thought that like vaping was supposed to be like for you to stop smoking cigarettes, but then it's worse. It's even more nicotine.
These are vape flavors. Unicorn poop.
False.
No, I wouldn't be surprised.
Fact.
What?
I just want to know what that tastes
Yeah, me too.
That's probably why they named it that.
Yeah.
Dubstep.
What is that?
I don't even know what that is. I'm going to say false.
False. It's a music genre. Actually, just kidding. Fact.
John's snow cone.
Go, Mom. Fact.
What's the weirdest flavor you've heard of, Alex?
Unicorn poop.
For more info on the dangers of vaping and nicotine, visit flavorshookkids.org.
Did an awesome job with that. Excellent. It looks like I saw a few of you that had all the correct answers. I wish I had a prize for you, so. But you guys did a great job with that. Any takeaways from that? Any surprises from that video?
Yeah,
What about you, Carol?
it's just amazing that they actually had to remove bathroom doors.
Right?
So it's like they're missing some privacy. Those that don't participate,
In an effort
that
to-
invaded their privacy by what someone else did.
Just in an effort to deal with the crisis, you know, and try to get a handle on it. Absolutely. How about the flavoring? Any surprises with the flavoring?
It's actually target to a child, like to have an eat a fruit. Because, oh, I did a breakfast show, and then say, oh, I want to try that. But it tastes like sprinkles.
Well, yeah, unicorn is definitely appealing to kids, and we're going to hear some more about that as we go through our presentation. So thank you for participating. So what we're going to talk about this evening is, first of all, what are e-cigarettes? How did we get here to this crisis? What are the effects of vaping? And we're going to focus on youth. Because the vaping industry is huge right now. There are so many issues, differing opinions out there. But our presentation today is for people who care about young people and focusing on how it affects youth, and also what can be done. The first thing we need to do is kind of define an e-cigarette. E-cigarettes are a battery-powered device that heats and disperses a liquid so that it can be inhaled into the lungs. We like to compare e-cigarettes to phones or computers. You can think about a Mac or a PC. They all essentially do the same thing, right? But they have, even though they have the same parts, they might look different on the outside. The same applies to e-cigarettes. E-cigarettes contain a battery, they all have a battery, a microprocessor, an atomizer, and a cartridge or a tank. So there are many variations on the mechanism, but the basic process is the same. So what happens is the microprocessor senses a change in pressure when the user inhales on the end of the e-cigarette. The microprocessor then instructs the atomizer to activate the heater and vaporize the liquid, which the smoker inhales through the mouthpiece. The vapor is then drawn into the body in the same way as regular cigarettes. Now vapor, many of you got this correct, but I did see some false ones. Vapor is defined as a substance diffused or suspended in the air, especially one normally liquid or solid. So think of the steam that comes from a pot or boiling water. That's what a lot of people believe comes out of an e-cigarette. In reality, it's an aerosolized vapor. Aerosol is defined as a substance enclosed under pressure and able to be released in a fine spray, typically by means of a propelling gas. So think of hairspray or room spray. Although vaping is a slang term for using an e-cigarette, it's a term that's meant to make e-cigarette use sound less harmful than it really is. So now that you've had all of that technical information, let's redefine what vaping is with what we've learned. So here, if we use this definition, inhaling the aerosolized chemicals created through the heating of e-liquid in an e-cigarette. Does that sound as innocent as saying vaping? False, right? Yeah, commercials don't word it that way, or advertising, they don't market it in that way, but it changes the whole definition, right? All right, so let's answer the, kind of look at what are e-cigarettes. All right, so I'm going to pull up a screen, and I want you to look at the items here. These look like school supplies laying out on a child's desk. So what you may not realize is that some of these supplies are actually e-cigarettes. So choose the ones that you think are e-cigarettes. One hint, there are 6 devices. Give you guys a chance to look at these. Anybody want to select one that they think is a yes?
C, B, I, J, G.
You got it completely 100% correct. Wow. Yeah? Yeah? You said B, C, F, G, I, and J. I wish I had a prize. But that was good. So I'd also like to take a minute and just share a quick video. This is very short, just to kind of give you an idea of.
Without stopping recording.
Yeah, it doesn't stop, it just shows on the screen.
No, you can look at this. Right?
See it. Can you click on Alexis? Come on there.
No, it won't let me.
There we go. Okay. All right. What is that?
like necessary.
So you think you know Wix, but do you really? First up, we've got shape video masks. You can use different shapes.
Say that again.
I said,
So you felt like it wasn't, or it's not even tripping. It didn't seem like it had some meaning.
it's on your
We're gonna,
Because they think the parents don't.
They won't have any intent perspective.
we're gonna talk about that as far as some of the ways that it is concealed, right? Ways that there's clothing, what are some other ways you can conceal it? We're here to learn.
First of all, how to get in it was, as a parent, you guys should pick up on it.
That's a good point. I think another, and I really understand what you're saying, the piece of what so hard for parents is many of them look like marker. You see it and just a marker. There are many school supplies even that are made from regular school supplies, but also made for parents who aren't even thinking about that. If they're not looking at that from that perspective, it can be really. But I agree with you that there are lots of ways that young people can feel. I'm not going to go into all of these generations of devices, but I would like to skip over to this 5th generation at the end. The 5th generation of vape device, since the flavor ban, which Sarah will talk a little bit about, new sleek design of disposable e-cigarettes are on the rise in popularity, come in many flavors and often have a high nicotine concentration. This type of e-cigarette is currently not part of the flavor ban. There was an effort to ban some of these flavors to make them less appealing to kids, but the disposable do not fall into that. What's most popular with young people now are the disposables. Is that right? Okay, so there are 8,000 different flavors of e-juice. E-juice is a slang term for the liquid in an e-cigarette. Its formal name is e-liquid. And more often than not, it includes nicotine and flavoring chemicals. Now, many of these flavorings are found in food products, but they are not designed to be inhaled into the lungs. Sarah has some samples of these that you can look at. But these chemicals might be in the food industry, but have not been tested as sort of something going into the lungs. E-cigarette vapor lacks the harsh burn of traditional cigarettes or cigars. So that makes the first puff that many young people experience friendlier on the palate, and thus easier for kids to take up the habit. Fruit was the most popular flavor for both middle school and high school students. Now you do see in this slide some that have been banned. Do you see the ones that look like juice boxes? Do you see those? They look like little juice box containers. Those have been banned. Treetop apple juice and also the Very Berry slushy. Those are some examples of products that were banned because they were especially appealing to kids. Now, beyond nicotine, this is really important. Any substance that can be transformed into a liquid can be used in an e-cigarette. That's really important. So what other substance is being put into these devices besides nicotine? THC, marijuana, right? Yes, absolutely. So it's important to recognize that the potency, THC or tetrahydrocannabinol, is the drug in marijuana that gives you that high feeling. The vape products that are out there, some of those have been tested to be as high as even 80 or 90% THC. So THC is a mood-altering substance, and for young people, this is particularly dangerous for their developing brains, and we're going to talk some about that. Any chemical, nicotine is highly addictive, and that's a huge issue when we talk about young people starting with vaping, but also being concerned about the many products out there that have THC in them. It used to, and it's still, nicotine is the most popular substance in vape devices for young people, but THC is actually catching up to that percentage. It's almost half and half of what we're finding that young people are vaping. To make vaping devices more fashionable, and this, I'm not sure of your name, but this kind of gets at what your point is as far as hiding the other vaping devices can be made very fashionable, created cases for their phones, trendy hand-knitted vape sweaters. Hardly even imagine it, but perhaps most shocking is the emergence of clothing, especially designed to conceal vaping devices. Not just clothing, but also backpacks, where there is they contain a stealth pocket, the device can be hidden, or they have product pod systems that deliver vapor discreetly through hosing woven through the hoodie and woven through the backpack. So then they can use the device without raising attention to parents, teachers, or other adults. Kind of get into your comment. So I'm going to turn it over now to Sarah, who is going to talk a little bit about how we got here in this situation.
Thanks, Kathy. So as Kathy mentioned, the Surgeon General first called this an epidemic, really helping to raise awareness of the rising numbers of young people using e-cigarettes and vapes. And the chart on the screen comes from the National Youth Tobacco Survey, which is administered by the CDC every year. And about 20,000 students grades 6 through 12 are surveyed each year about their relationship with tobacco. And the year that's highlighted here, the survey was delivered between January and March of 2020. And we saw a steady increase in youth e-cigarette use from 2017 to 2019, as you can see. And during that 3-year span, we saw a 135% increase in high school students and 218% increase among middle school students. We shifted a little bit in 2020. We weren't sure if that was due to a lot of young people being at home or not having access to devices or maybe sources where they used to get these products. But we did see a slight downturn, but there was still a lot of young people in both high school and middle school that were using e-cigarettes. That's still 19.6% of high school students and 4.7%, or about 1 in 5 high school and 1 in 20 middle school students reported current e-cigarette use. And then what also came out of the National Youth Tobacco Survey in 2020 was that the frequent and daily use rates for both middle and high schoolers were still really high. And so what that shows us, and this data that is a little bit older, but we've seen rates continue to go down for high school. Overall tobacco rates for middle school actually did just go up a little bit. But for those individuals who are using the products, they're using them regularly. And that's a sign of nicotine dependence. It's also a sign of how much nicotine is in these products. Young people do not see themselves as addicted, but we know that nicotine is extremely addictive. So to feed a frequent or daily habit, young vaping teens have had to find ways to get their fix with age restrictions, which we'll talk about in a second, and limited flavor bans. And so Kathy did just briefly talk about the current flavor bans only cover pre-filled pods or cartridges like the Juul, which really was one of the products that really made e-cigarettes very popular among young people, and then Juul alikes. And so when those were really limited, we saw the rate skyrocket from the disposable e-cigarettes. cigarettes. So consistent with the 2019 data, pre-fill pods or cartridges were the most commonly used device in 2020. And then disposable e-cigarette use increased approximately 1,000%. So again, the pods were limited with a policy. When it worked, there were disposables. These flavors were not banned, and so these were able to really skyrocket. I keep thinking of showing on the video, but I don't think I am.
No, so
if I go this way?
Yep, there you go.
Okay, yeah, sorry everyone. So here's the Joel, and then here's the new one that's a disposable. So products like Puff Bar rose in popularity because these were disposable flavored products. So it was 1,000% among high schoolers, and approximately 400% it rose among middle school current e-cigarette users. So that's still really alarming. And among the current users, more than 8 in 10 reported using flavored e-cigarettes. My guess is it's higher than 8 in 10. They just maybe didn't realize that they were flavored e-cigarettes. The tobacco flavors are not very popular among youth. The flavors that tend to hook them are anything else. It started out as mango, and even mint and menthol rose in popularity, but the other flavors were limited. And so here's one statistic that really scares the public health community. Despite an overall decrease in youth using traditional cigarettes, the data from the 2019 National Youth Tobacco Survey actually showed an overall increase in tobacco use. A study by the University of Pittsburgh found that in the study, 47.7% of those who used e-cigarettes at baseline began smoking cigarettes within 18 months, compared to just 10.2% of non-e-cigarette users. Scientific models showed that e-cigarette use made it 6.8 times more likely that an individual would begin smoking cigarettes within 18 months. So the alarming rates at which youth are beginning to vape is undermining the progress that has been made toward reducing overall youth tobacco use. The 2019 National Youth Tobacco Survey data showed that among youth who currently use tobacco, about 1 in 3 reported using 2 or more tobacco products in the past 30 days. So again, it's that really addictive nicotine that may make someone, more interested in trying another product that again can calm that nicotine craving and satisfy that craving and that they already have from being addicted to these products. And we do want to mention that e-cigarettes may be an off-ramp for some adults, some older, long-time individuals who smoke cigarettes, but it's also been an on-ramp for new, young tobacco and nicotine users. Big Tobacco used the term replacement smokers in the 1980s to refer to the young people they needed to draw into tobacco use in order to replace their dying customers. Perhaps this link between vaping and smoking pulls back the veil on the tobacco industry's motives behind multi-billion-dollar investments in e-cigarette companies. It's pretty clear that the new replacement smokers for Big Tobacco are today's young vaping teens.
Sarah, so we're going to talk a little bit now about some of the reasons why teens vape, and there's 3, according to the Monitoring the Future survey, there's 3 main reasons why you vape. One is they see other people doing it and they're curious and they want to experiment. They want to see what it's like. Maybe they have someone, a peer, it could be an older sibling, it could be maybe a parent. I actually, over the winter break, was watching some movies and television shows, and it was the first time I'm starting to see that portrayed in some of the movies and television shows that I'm watching where people are vaping, which at one point traditional cigarette smoking was an effort to get that out of our television movies, but we're starting to see that return. So certainly when young people are seeing that, they're like a sponge, so they're going to absorb what they see around them. Of course, it's not mentioned here, but you have to recognize that vape shops are very popular and they're popping up on all of our neighborhoods and street corners. They're very popular, so of course youth are exposed to those and see those shops and stores that are very have flashing lights and really can draw them in, and they're curious just to see. And for adolescents, that's part of their developmental phase, is they're curious and they're trying to figure out their identity and they're trying to figure out who they are and might start to take some unhealthy risks. And so that's why we have these programs, is to try to get information out there to parents. The second reason is because it tastes good. Sarah was mentioning all the different flavors, and we talked about that. They're appealing. The third is basically it's social. They're, young people are with their friends, they're having a good time, and they often associate vaping with relaxation or relieving tension. Just to speak a few minutes about this, it's really important to note that teens have reported to relax or relieve tension is more and more the main reason that youth are vaping. So why is that important? Why is that? What are we going on? What's going on right now with our young people? Besides the vaping crisis and epidemic, what are we also struggling with? Our teens struggling with right now, more so than ever. Mental health, yes. Mr. Paul, do you agree with that? Yeah. Mental health, absolutely. Yeah, so there's a direct link to teens' mental health. This is really important because if teens are starting habits of using vaping to cope with anxiety, with depression, particularly important, as Sarah was mentioning, how highly addictive nicotine is. Really important to address it early on, and especially encourage young people to not get started, to not even start that habit. In addition, as we mentioned earlier, any substance can be put in these vapes. THC is a mood-altering substance, and while many youth think that it can help them calm down, relax, relieve tension, THC, knowing that different substances affect every teen differently, THC, cannabis products, can actually increase anxiety, paranoia, and even lead to irritation and issues that can create problems as far as their mental health. So we want to help them develop some healthy forms of coping with those feelings without the use of substances. Very important. So why has there been this rapid and dramatic increase in youth vaping? They say that most teens don't know what's in an e-cigarette. 66% of teens surveyed believe it's just flavoring. So that's critical, right? They think it's just flavoring. They don't think that there are any harmful chemicals in these devices. So that's where parents can really come in to get the facts, like you're here tonight, or tuning in to get information so you can have facts and help young people understand that. So the lack of knowledge about e-cigarettes makes youth more susceptible to the mysteries that they can encounter online or hear from peers and social media. I'm going to turn it over to Sarah to talk a little bit about the marketing to our teens, which is a huge issue.
Thanks, Kathy. Another major contributor to the increase in use is the pervasive marketing and advertising. So you can see that 7 in 10 kids are regularly exposed to e-cigarette advertisements. And as Kathy's alluded to, that's really different from where we saw where cigarettes were really limited in their advertising and e-cigarettes really were behind and not included in those same policies. And so it's no surprise that youth are seeing e-cigarette, I'll just stay on that just for another second. They're seeing these advertisements in retail stores, 58.4%. For years, the tobacco industry has also marketed their products in retail stores. And here in Virginia, we have partners around the state that go out to educate tobacco retailers and encourage them not to place products below 3 feet, because who's below 3 feet? Most likely that's a lot of our really young people that are already starting to see these advertisements right at their eye level. The next highest rate of exposure was over the internet at 44.6%, followed by TV, streaming services, or movies and games. I think gaming would be included in that at 26.2%, and 34.8% exposed via newspapers or magazines. And so it's important to teach kids, just like you do, teach them to find fake news or to find reputable sources online, to also help them recognize e-cigarette ads, which can be stealthy and subtle in social media, so they can understand when they're being sold something. So, think about your social media use or your children's use. We can control who we follow and who follows us, but we can't control the advertising that pops up, the sponsored ads. And so we need to think about the influencers and celebrities that might use these products and post about them. And so here's some examples of the retail advertising that we were talking about. It's all over doors, windows, and even outside at the gas stations, at some retail stores as well. So next time you're at the convenience store, take note of these ads, where they're placed, and also look at the price, the sales, and slashing the prices for some of these new nicotine pouches that I hope we'll talk about at the end. There's typically buy one, get one free, 2 for $5, very inexpensive. Starter kits for vapes are very inexpensive. There were even used starter kits that were for $1. So just trying to get people to buy the products and then need the refillable pods or use the disposables. Yeah.
So they can buy the vape stuff in any store?
So the flavored vapes, the question is whether you can buy vapes at any store. In Virginia, we don't have a tobacco retail license, so anyone can buy them and sell them at stores, and then our partners in mental health actually go around and identify what stores are selling them and who's selling what. But vapes don't have to be just in a vape shop. You can buy them at grocery stores that sell tobacco products, most likely gas stations, 7-Elevens, Sheetz, all of those places you also will see it. The flavored ones are not supposed to be sold outside of a vape shop or a place where you have to be carded to go in at 21, but we know they are still sometimes out there. Kathy mentioned some of those devices that look like, the apple juice. Just this week, FDA put out a notice to stop selling some that looked like Jack Daniels. They were branded almost the same. I forget the vape name for it. It was like Vape Daniels or, some play on word. And so those, when they come in, they may get sold some places. They're banned by FDA, but it takes a while to pull them from shelves or people to know that they're not supposed to be sold. And so we're constantly playing catch up as public health. And one thing that set Juul apart, there are a couple of things that really, when Juul became super popular, but one that we're talking about right now is really their advertising strategy. And there was a whole Netflix documentary on this recently that many of you may have seen. But the Juul ads are filled, this was Dr. Robert Jackler, a tobacco advertising expert, said, the Juul ads are filled with attractive young models socializing and flirtatiously sharing the flash drive shaped device, displaying behavior like dancing to club music and clothing styles more characteristic of teens than mature adults. And so this was intentional. This was discussed at a high level with Juul's executives, and they could have gone with an ad that really encouraged adult users to quit using traditional cigarettes, and instead they went with this very flashy and fun and young-looking advertising campaign. And they had a strong social media presence. They used hashtags and peer-to-peer promotion for activities like Juul Challenges, which were stunts or activities devised by social media influencers that encourage people to take and post pictures and videos of themselves doing various things with their Juul devices. So these kinds of guerrilla social media tactics create the illusion of grassroots, genuine enthusiasm and activity, but they're actually meticulously coordinated and strategic marketing campaigns sometimes mockingly referred to as AstroTurf, for being fake grassroots campaigns.
And they can also be purchased online, is that what?
Yes, so yeah, e-cigarettes can be purchased online. There's often just a box, RU21. Some companies do the ID check, but we have heard of youth purchasing them online.
How do they do the ID check if it's online?
I have, yeah, there's a whole lot of issues with the online that they're constantly trying to stay on top of, including, I told you we're always a step behind, but when Puff Bar became really popular, when I mentioned after Juul flavors were banned, Puff Bar became popular, then there were counterfeit Puff Bars. And so there was even information on the website like how to tell if your vape is a real vape, if it's really from this company, probably still made, you know, I'm not this brand in particular, but a lot of these products are made in China. There isn't oversight, they're coming in. So the websites, they're just a lot out there. Yeah. But social media came up as also a big concern when we said that mental health is a concern among our young people. And so, you know, there are other social media channels, not just Juul, but we saw similar activity with companies having a spot the vape technique to show users how easy it is to conceal. There's a popular company right now that had a back to school sale, including hoodies where you could hide vapes. So that was just this past school year coming up in August. So these things are constantly coming out that are appealing to youth and appealing for them to hide it. And there were even some that exploited the COVID-19 pandemic. Some e-cigarette companies offered free masks with the purchase. Bitty Vapor claimed on Instagram that a bitty stick a day keeps the pulmonologist away. And one ad even had, it was for work from home, but it talked about where your parents can't see the products, you know, won't know that you're using them. And so that's clearly also students that were home during the pandemic. Kathy, I'm going to turn it back over.
Thank you, Sarah. So I'm going to go through really quickly about, you know, why is this important? And the important thing is that our young people, we want them to establish healthy habits, and vaping can impact a developing brain. Young people's brains do not mature until 25. And important for academics also, it can impact their attention, learning, their mood, and impulse control. So many times, you know, we just need to do a quick little biology lesson here. Each time a new memory is created or a new skill is learned, stronger connections or synapses are built between brain cells. Young people's brains build synapses faster than adults. So they're constantly building these connections and synapses. Nicotine, we're talking about specifically nicotine, changes the way those synapses are formed, interfering with the brain's sensitive pleasure and reward feedback loop. So because of this, nicotine in adolescence may also increase the risk of future addiction to other drugs, which is really important. And this was talked about in the beginning, so I won't go over this again, but the amount of nicotine in many of these devices, one pod is equal to, in many cases, a pack of cigarettes. So some kids are developing nicotine habits equivalent to 2-pack-a-day smokers. And that's just hard to even imagine. A lot of this is attributed, and I think Sarah will talk a little bit about this, is the nicotine salts, right, Sarah? They have a higher level of nicotine. Right, so some of the examples of some of the chemicals that can be in e-cigarettes, heavy metals. E-juice contains cancer-causing chemicals, nickel, tin, and lead, and almost always the addictive tobacco-derived nicotine. And what they found, which is interesting, is even some devices that say they don't have any nicotine, they have zero nicotine, some of those have been tested and found that there's nicotine in some of those products. So very deceiving. Again, there's no regulation on the marketing of these products and no requirement to put the ingredients in that product. Just like we have foods that we eat that have to have those ingredients in them. This just talks about our generation right now. Young people are really sort of in this guinea pig generation. E-cigarette and vaping products should not be used by youth and young adults. But adults who do not currently use tobacco products should not start using e-cigarettes or vaping products. There is no safe tobacco product. All tobacco products, including e-cigarettes, carry a risk. There have been cases of EVALI is an e-cigarette and vaping associated lung injury. And many of those injuries were associated with vitamin E acetate, which is a common food additive, but is not designed to be ingested into our lungs. So that attributed to many of those lung injuries. And most of those were THC devices that were modified, what we kind of refer to as mods. But I think one of the things that's important to recognize is that our young people are very susceptible to, like Sarah mentioned, the advertising. And I think thinking of that generation is the guinea pig generation and no regulation. It's really serious. Some of the more long-term effects, we could think about COVID-19. COVID-19 is certainly, anyone can contract COVID-19, but for young people or anyone who's vaping, they're 5 times more likely to contract COVID-19 if they're vaping, particularly because it impacts the immune system. That people can experience cough, chest pain, it can impact the heart, shortness of breath, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, increased heart rate, fever, chills, and fatigue. So if you notice these signs in your teen, behavior changes, difficulty concentrating, changing in eating patterns, mouth sores, dry mouth, because a lot of these products can dry out the mouth, and you complain of having dry mouth, unexplained nosebleeds, sudden interest in burning scented candles or incense to cover up the smell. The smell of vape products, their fruit flavorings, it's a very distinct smell. It does kind of permeate clothes, bedding. They might start burning candles to cover that up. Sudden use of perfume or cologne, or missing phone chargers, because many of these are devices, of course, have a battery, so they need to have that charging. Now, each one of these needs to be taken into consideration. It doesn't mean that if you see one of these things with your youth that they're vaping, but it's a good time to open up that conversation and start talking about that. When you're looking at how to start that conversation with your young person, it is important to think about before you start the conversation. The first thing you've done here today is come to this training to get more information. That's the important thing, is to have the facts before you start the conversation. When you do start the conversation, try not to come to them with, we need to talk. Because no one likes to hear that, right? Our immediate thought is, oh, what did I do wrong? Instead, bring up a recent event or a news story about vaping. Maybe, talk about one of the advertising issues that Sarah has been talking about. It's a safe way to start the conversation without accusing your child of vaping. If there's something you don't know and your child asks you that question, it's okay to say, I don't know, but let me find out the answer. It's also not a one and done conversation. Just like other things, you want to keep the conversation going as much as you can. And Sarah's going to talk in just a minute here about some cessation resources for young people. Evidence has also found that checking in with your young person is really helpful, whether it's you're riding in a car, heading somewhere, doing a family meeting, having fun, like pizza night or game night. Ask some questions like, just find out how they're doing. Talk to them about what's going on in their lives. You can ask some of those where, who, when questions. Also go over your expectations of what your expectations are at your house and make sure your young person understands those expectations. And then also taking into account when they're at someone else's house, talking to them about what those expectations are. Making connections with friends' parents can help with setting those rules. CATCH, the program that we're doing today, is called, CATCH stands for Coordinated Approach to Child Health. And in Henrico County Schools, we're starting off today doing our parent program through CATCH, which is the SAMHSA Science Research-Based Curriculum. But along with that, we are piloting CATCH lessons in our high schools, actually starting at one of our high schools in the next couple of weeks with 9th and 10th graders. So the Catch My Breath program is K through 12, and the effort next year is to incorporate CATCH lessons for our elementary, middle, and high school students. So again, we talked about this, just setting clear expectations. I'm going to go ahead and have, I know we have some slides here around we're running a little bit short on time, but I'll turn this over to Sarah to talk a little bit about.
We've already been talking a lot about the flavor ban, so I do just want to mention that the tobacco age in Virginia and the United States is 21. So I'm finding that not all parents are aware of that, but that did raise in 2019. And so that's to purchase, use, or possess tobacco products. And so that the reason is that growing adolescent brain that is very prone to addiction, it postpones tobacco use, which postpones, hopefully, addiction to that product as well. And so we do encourage you to get engaged, to find out more, talk to other parents, email or call your school or PTA, and get involved with grassroots advocacy. Parents Against Vaping E-Cigarettes and the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids are great places to start if you're frustrated about this increase in youth use and this continued use of nicotine products among young people.
Switch over to you.
And then I just wanted to mention that here, Kathy had some great tips on how to talk to young people about using, how to stop use if they're using, how to see if they're using tobacco products. And I just wanted you to be aware of a couple of other resources. I'm going to fly through these, and then please Google them, look them up, and do that on your own. But I just want you to know that if a young person is using it, again, they may not see themselves as addicted, and really there are a lot of tools to help them quit for good. And young people do want to quit. Over half of the young e-cigarette users show that they want to quit, and many have tried. And so really tapping into their motivations, which might be their health, they might want to save money or social factors, really important to get them the tools to quit. So here in Virginia, we have Live Vape Free. Please go to livevapefreeva.org. There is information for young people. They can text 873-373. They can text Vape Free VA to start getting science-based information about what is in these products and how they may be able to help them stop using them. But then we also have information for adults. We have a discussion guide that adults, whether it's a guidance counselor, a coach, youth pastor, aunt, uncle, or a parent, guardian, can download, and some of the tips that Kathy shared, that it walks you through how to talk to a young person. And you can connect with a coach as an adult on how to help a young person quit. This is Quitting is another great program to help young people quit. This is one that our teens are probably seeing advertised to them while they're gaming or streaming. And the wonderful thing about this is that it's also available in Spanish, and This is Quitting also has a parent component to support you in helping a young person quit. And this question comes up a lot from parents: what if my child doesn't want to quit? And so the Truth Initiative has a really great link that, sorry, I just got very distracted. I realized we were in a different, it doesn't matter, my notes are totally fine. But Google it, what if you don't want to quit, from the Truth Initiative, and there's steps that really help you through, like an activity that talks to your kids, that, because we realize they are getting something from that product. They feel that there are positives, but we know there are negatives, especially to their mental health. And so it really walks you through how to do that. And SAMHSA has some great products called brochures and an app and talking points to help with a lot of different substance use, including drinking and vaping. So I do encourage you to look at Talk, They Hear You. And then if you yourself use a tobacco or nicotine product, I encourage you to consider quitting as well. We know nearly 75% of adult tobacco users want to quit. And so we have services for you too, not just for the young people. But Quit Now Virginia is free, confidential, open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that can connect you with a certified quit coach online or on the phone to really help you reduce and quit your tobacco use as well. So thank you for being here tonight. I think as parents and as concerned adults, we hope that when our young people are out on the road, that they have tools that they know to make the right choices that keep them safe. And so having these conversations around substance use, including nicotine, is really important. And what you can do can make the biggest difference. So we do have a little bit of time for questions. Well, we don't have a lot of time, but is there a question or two?